Hello and welcome to Proven Concept. This is our slightly new thing, so don't worry. Proof of concept isn't going away, but we thought it'd be nice to do some shorter form content where we talk about actual automotive stories that happen, not just things that could have, and hauntological stories about what might have been. We thought it'd be cool to talk about some of the lesser known parts of history. And just discuss them because we're all slightly on the spectrum. So we deep dive into stuff a bit too often. Talking of let's introduce everyone as per usual. Now, I couldn't figure out how to get text boxes up on this presentation thing, so I'm just going to introduce myself via photo. I'm Alex Twinspark, and I'm in the top left.
Are we supposed to introduce ourselves now? I'm Tyler. I'm on the right side. All by myself over there because the most introverted introvert.
Yeah, I'm Daylan. I'm hiding in the corner and under the helmet. We've gone to the picture where you can't see me, which that's preferred.
There's a lot of behind the scenes jokes they won't get about why you're underneath Alex, but
don't mock me for my marriage, for God's sake. You're the one that married us, Tyler. For God's sake, man, you can't get it like this. Abby will be joining us on future ones, our regular host of the other shows. This podcast is not well organised, as you can tell. I would take full responsibility, as technically it is my fault, but I'm not going to. I'm going to blame anyone else. Anyway, so that's us for today. Tyler, you came up with the idea for this episode, so are you ready to take it away and explain to us what the hell it is we're looking at here?
Yes. So, early 1930s, Indianapolis 500. They're trying to figure out how are we going to increase participation. So they loosened up some engine rules and allowed anything with a stock block up to 366 cubic inches, so 6 liters. Now, at this time, there was a genius man in Indiana, which Indianapolis 500 is in Indianapolis, Indiana, Clessie Cummins. And he saw this.
The
Cummins diesel.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, it is. This is as they were getting their start.
Ah, okay. Sorry, to give
so
some context to the viewers, I have absolutely no idea what this is. I'm learning along with you. So if I ask weird questions, they're not prompted. They are just me not knowing what's going on. Sorry, continue, Tyler.
Anyway, so seeing that they allowed a slightly different size engine to go in, a little bit bigger engine, Cummins kind of saw this as an opportunity for some marketing, maybe, because right now their engines are primarily in boats. They also do like power equipment, tractors, stuff like that, but they're really not in the road market.
Well, they're actually not. I thought they started off on buses, though.
No. So the Model U that this car ended up using came from a boat. It was a boat engine.
Oh.
But anyway, so Cummins went to the owner of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which at the time was Eddie Rickenbacker. And they had struck a deal that if he could qualify with an average speed over 80 miles an hour, because at Indianapolis you run a couple laps and it's your average speed over those laps is how you qualify, that he would be in the race. He just had to go over 80 for his qualification time. He has a spot. But there will be no prize money given for wherever he finishes. So that's the deal they struck. Because nobody really knew what was going to happen going into this. This is the first time a diesel had ever raced in it.
Okay.
This is an engine manufacturer going, can I build a car and show up?
At this point, this might have been one of the first diesel race cars ever, actually.
Very, very likely. It's very early on. This is the first of the Cummins specials to race in Indy. So, with that agreement in hand, old Clessie there had to figure out how to make this work. Now, there's a bit of a problem. The engine that he had in mind, the Cummins Model U, was actually a 6.3 liter, which was too big. So, they took 3 millimeter out of the bore. That brought it down to 361 cubic inches, or 5.9 liters for you freaking European types.
How did you do that then? Did you just put cylinder liners in?
Yeah, they made the liners a bit smaller in it.
Okay.
Now, this engine only made 40 horsepower at 900 RPM to start with. So decreasing the bore did not help that problem. But they did do some aluminum pistons for a bit more compression and a special set of heads that were 3 valves per cylinder. And they managed to bump it up to 85 horsepower at 1400 RPM. Wow. Now, this is 1931 that's on a naturally aspirated diesel.
That's
4-cylinder diesel.
Whoa.
I mean, really though, when you think about 85 horsepower and 31, that
Yeah.
4-cylinder diesel is making more power than a lot of cars on the road.
Yeah, it's not a particularly powerful time. I mean, I think this is around the same sort of time that the biggest engine in any production car in the world was out, which is that Fiat 27-liter thing, and I think that only made something like 100 odd horsepower. So, they're not. It's not exactly off base.
Yeah.
For context, the 4-cylinder in a Model A at the time was 40 horsepower, and from
Now,
the V8 was. Not funny.
I think it wasn't until the later 30s that we saw the V8. Well, no, 32 would have had it.
Oh, that's right. It was the Model B.
Wasn't it straight eights that normally come through on there?
Actually, yes, and we'll touch back on that in a minute here. But that engine weighed 1,600 pounds, so over 3/4 of a ton, just for the engine.
That's a bloody heavy engine. That.
So at this point in the story, we're sitting there, and Cummins has an engine, but he has no car. The car wasn't even a thing yet. So, being in Indiana, he went to another Indiana auto manufacturer, which I don't know if you guys know this, but Duesenberg was based in Indianapolis, Indiana. You can actually still go to the old Duesenberg factory. All the old signage is still in the building, but it's actually the headquarters for Indigo, which is Indianapolis's public bus service. I've got pictures of my Harley outside of there. Actually, I'm going to make you have to do some work in editing. I'm going to send you a picture of my bike in front of that factory, and you're going to have to put it on there. Deal with it.
I wanted to turn this round and get this up today.
It takes 1 second to flash a picture over the screen.
You're making me do my job. How dare you?
Anyway. But yeah, Cummins got a hold of Augie Duesenberg and asked him to modify a Duesenberg Model A to fit this engine, the Model U that he had. So that you're looking at right there is actually a Duesenberg Model A. Was a Duesenberg Model A. Which on its own is a really impressive car. They were built from 1921 to 1926. They were the first series production car with hydraulic brakes.
Oh. Huh.
This is the level of sketch we're dealing with here. Originally, it would have had a 4.3-liter overhead cam inline 8.
Hydraulic drum brakes as well.
I believe so. It was from the 20s. Of course, they're drums.
I do not see a brake caliper anywhere on that car.
Yeah, those are big ass drums.
I actually never verified, but does the Indy Cummins Special still have front brakes?
It looks like it does.
Yeah, they look like front brakes to me.
If you look at the bottom picture there.
Yep, you can still see them.
Hang on a minute. Are you saying that race cars used to only have rear brakes?
A lot of dirt, a lot of select circle track stuff. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. You don't need the front brakes; those are just for steering.
Well, actually, in general, for the longest time in early automotive history, it was really annoying to figure out how to get like any kind of like either hydraulic or mechanical connection to make the front brakes operate on the steering axle.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I'm pretty sure they had figured it out by this point because we're by 31, we're pretty far into we kind of understand how a car is supposed to work now.
It's kind of one of those weird things.
I didn't actually see what year this chassis was though. 21 to 26 was the production of the Model A. So this from Duesenberg.
It's one of those things where you realize a lot of like modern safety tech, you realize is very new. Like ABS wasn't really a thing on a lot of cars until like the 90s.
I have a 2004 that doesn't have it.
ABS didn't really become good and usable until I would say mid 2000s.
I mean, what's the ABS like on your Tahoe? Isn't that useful or?
It worked once.
I'll say this.
And then he threw it in the trash.
The Alpha doesn't have ABS at the moment, and the MR2 has questionable ABS at
times. My bus doesn't. Neither of my second gens do. My third gen does, but it doesn't work. And then you think Harley's going to give me
bus
brakes?
Is from the same era that this car is from. It's what, 1946?
7, close.
Oh, look at me being close. I almost know when your house was made.
Anyway, so this Duesenberg though originally had that 4.3-liter overhead cam inline 8, 260 cubic inches, 5-to-1 compression, so dumpster fire. But it made 88 horse and 170 foot-pounds of torque with a top speed of 95 miles an hour. But the part that really blows me away is off the showroom floor, that Duesenberg weighs 3,750 pounds. After Augie shoved that Model U in there, they got it to 3389, sub 3,400 pounds with a 1,600-pound engine in it.
So how do they lose the weight then? How do they?
Well, that body is not a Duesenberg Model A. It's a Duesenberg chassis.
They
Indy
cut a
speeds
lot
the
of
body.
things off. Made a
There's
lot
no
of
safety on
things
it.
in.
Guaranteed
Yeah,
that car doesn't have seatbelts.
Yeah, this very much predates safety.
This is the era when it was just you buy the chassis, not the actual car, isn't it? That they would.
As my friend Russell likes to refer to it, the era when the drivers were fat and the tires were skinny.
Actually, if you think about this actually, in theory, was probably the safest car on grid because diesel fuel is more stable when it leaks all over the place.
And also,
and that would have been early forms of race fuel, which got really sketchy depending on how you made it.
Also,
yeah, so the fuel in this would be more stable when you pile it into a wall and it leaks in the tank with no bladder in it, busts and leaks everywhere.
Man, racing
So,
dangerous.
we're going to go early February 1931, okay? Now, this car obviously has no roof, no doors, no interior, no heat. But they decided they're going to drive it down to Daytona Beach, Florida, because they want to get some testing in on the car at speed, and the beaches of Daytona are the place to go at the time. So they drove this car, didn't trailer it, didn't truck it. They drove it from Indianapolis in February, which I don't know if you know this or not, is terrible. Like average temperatures in that area in February are below 0 Celsius, and they drove this to Florida.
Again, back when you could just do that, because that was a thing you were allowed to do in the 30s.
Yeah, well, they drove it all the way down there, and they set a record of 100.775 miles an hour. So that car set a class record. Yeah, it makes more sense now. So they drove it down there, and then they drove it home.
Sorry, is that an average speed or is that top speed?
No, that's top speed on the beach.
That's on bloody... Again...
on a public beach, yes.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't realize as well with a lot of land speed records, because they were all set on beaches, which usually quiet and quite long. What people often don't take into account as well is like sand slows you down quite a lot. So achieving 100, just over 100 miles an hour on sand, that's good going.
They did
on an engine that only revs to 1,500 RPM.
Yeah. Did it have a gearbox? Because I know a lot of cars back then were sort
of
chain drive.
3-speed, I would imagine.
Yeah, I could not find anything about what it is, and I unfortunately do not have a contact in the museum that's in to let me go look at it.
There's actually not a lot documented about the tech side of this car. I really wish somebody had recorded the build of this car more and pictures and crap, because I'm sure there's a lot of weird stuff going on in there, but we just can't find any of it.
Well, this is the
new goal, guys. Get our podcast to the point where they will let us in the same building as this car, so Daylan and I can take it apart and look at it.
I have seen this car. I have stood next to the car. I have a picture of it because it's I'm pretty sure it's still in the Indy Museum.
Who owns it though? Is it property of Indianapolis or is it property of Cummins?
I don't know. Okay. Also, the car was still in there circa 2017.
I haven't been. That's another thing. We need to do an on-location episode at the Indianapolis Museum.
I need to come to America.
I want to go to NASCAR Museum too. We need to go to that one.
I also want to go to the NASCAR Museum. Can you guys just have me over in America to come and do a thing? That'd be cool.
Yeah. Right? I mean, my house has wheels and I have a couch you can stay on.
Yay! Hang on, the couch is in the bus, right? You're not just towing me behind with
it. Damn it! You have to get the inside couch. Where am I supposed to eat breakfast?
We add a roof rack just for Alex.
Oh, mate, I'd be down for that. Surfing USA on the top of a 1940s bus. Everybody's gone surfing. Surfer's house.
So, they set the record. We're doing good here. The car is working like they planned. So they decide they're going to drive it back home. But instead of driving it straight back home, which this predates interstates, but my guess is US 41 would probably be the route they take. It'd take them up through Tennessee, Kentucky, back up into Indiana, right? They decide they're going to stop in Washington, D.C. So they drive up the coast, go to D.C., and then shoot back across the country through that hellhole we call Ohio.
Again,
so
I want to point out as well, people,
That's a few thousand miles on that trip.
Not just that is like a few thousand miles on the trip. That is not in a road legal car. That is that is effectively like today being in Milton Keynes and having all of the F1 cars just blat past you to go off to Monaco or something like that. That is.
I can't say this. I lived in Indianapolis long enough. I have been passed by the Honda 2-seater Indycar with the temporary license plate tag duct taped to the wing.
Really? That's amazing.
Yeah, I was driving my S10. I was driving my S10 down Gasoline Alley, and something comes up in my mirror and then blows the fuck past me, and it's the 2-seater Indycar.
I am amazed, and oh, there are many faults with your country, but there are some things you guys get glorious.
Yeah, you do have.
Part of me kind of misses living there, but Indianapolis is a great place to live if you love racing.
Yeah, Indiana we don't like Indiana, to be honest. But in Indianapolis, there's a lot of fucking shenanigans going on there.
So my last house before I moved down here to Tennessee, I was less than 10 minutes away from this track.
Yeah.
There's flats on it now. You can rent an apartment that overlooks the track, and I can't think of anything better. I'd love that.
Do you want to go to the?
I will say going to IMS is fucking hilarious because it doesn't look like you're approaching a racetrack, and then suddenly you're there.
Yeah, it's the neighborhoods all around it and housing. This is another side tangent. There's a house right outside of Turn 4 that my friend parks at every year. It's just a little 1-story house, probably under 1,000 square feet. And in the backyard, there's a little 3-car garage where it's got like the 3 carriage doors, so 3 swing open pair of single doors, and maybe another stall after it with some just old single pane glass windows. It doesn't look like anything. That shop in that guy's backyard used to build engines for Indy cars because he lived right outside the track. You blow the engine up, you go across the street, and he'll rebuild them.
Motorsport used to be mad in the best of ways. One of my favorite stories along those sort of lines is they were doing the rally in, I can't remember if it was in North Wales or if it was in Europe somewhere. It might have been Germany, actually. And one of the escorts was competing. The prop shaft just split and broke, and they're like, oh, bugger, what do we do now? And they just ran onto the road, found a random guy with a Capri and went, hiya, mate, we're trying to, win a race. Can we borrow your prop shaft? And he was like, yeah, right. So this poor fellow who's on a commute to work just gave him his prop shaft so they could just repair their escort and finish the race. Racing used to be a very, very weird thing. A bit more normal?
It still is at some levels, to be honest.
But, oh, man.
Okay. So, if you want to go to the next slide here. There's some better pictures of the car in color.
I've been there.
That is Goodwood. That car has been to Goodwood.
Do we know what time they did on the hill?
I think we might have goofed. I don't think the number 6 car is the same car there.
I was going to say, that looks like a very different... Unless I'm photo...
I think that was the second one they built.
I believe it is, but I think I included that one because the engine was available to see.
Ah.
Yeah, I think that is pretty much the same engine. Also, the thing that is actually the worst part of this, actually the best part of the story. They did what, 6 of these over the years?
Yeah, they did. They did quite a few.
So
I guess if they like this one enough, we'll dig the stories up of the rest of them.
So I'm assuming they competed then, because obviously I think we got as far as saying they drove back from.
That's what we're getting to here.
Yes.
So once back in Indiana, they had a little bit more testing that they wanted to do. So Cummins is based in Columbus, Indiana, which is south of Indianapolis by about an hour. So this car would drive.
Are you saying that Cummins is effectively, say, an Indiana diesel?
That's where my yes.
Yes. So sorry, that's an hour today on the interstate doing 70 miles an hour. So we'll take it back to the early 1931 here. I imagine it's about a 2-hour commute each way to the track, and they were driving this car from their shop to the track and back for all of their testing.
Again, motorsport. It's a bizarre thing.
Cummins in general is kind of cool, because they also have details. They do shit like this where, D001, the first ever Cummins Dodge pickup, that was just their beater shop truck for years.
I kind of like that. That's sick nasty.
It has since been restored and is nasty. So I think in the story right now, we're sitting at about Saturday, May 23rd of 1931. The number 8 car showed up to qualify. and their best qualifying attempt gave them an average speed over their 3 laps of 96.871 miles an hour. Indianapolis is a 2.5-mile oval. Now, that would have qualified them in 43rd position of what at the time would only be a 40-car field. But due to the agreement he had reached with Rickenbacker that if he could qualify over 80 miles an hour, which the reason they did 80 is they didn't want the car to obviously just be a traffic hazard to the race, that they were allowed to start. So they were in. They had it. They bumped out somebody who actually qualified faster than them, who should have been able to race, but no. This car made it. So
how does that? Okay, because that through these weird, obviously, agreements, then that even if you were better, you were worse somehow.
Well, I'm not going to question Rickenbacker's choice on this. I'm happy that he let him do it. I'm happy that they came to this agreement. But basically, he said, we'll guarantee you a spot in the race. Just don't be so slow that you're going to cause a problem.
I mean,
now
that works.
The race was largely uninteresting for them. Well, kind of. Now, at the time, you had a driver and a ride-along mechanic for the race. Okay?
Oh, back in those days. Okay.
This car finished its 200th lap, which at the time, you had to do your whole 200 laps to make your 500 miles. 38 minutes after the leader, netting them a 13th position. Now, they've done something that has never since been done in Indianapolis. They ran the entire 500-mile race without a pit stop. The car never stopped moving.
Sorry, they never ran out of diesel. It still had a full tank by the end.
Yeah, it was good. Now, this was later found out that that was not intentional. This is obviously before radios. So what would happen is you would have somebody lean over the pit wall and give a set of hand gestures to the ride-along mechanic, who would then pass along the information to the driver. Hey, it's time to come into the pits. Or he would relay back, maybe we have this problem or we have that problem. The ride-along mechanic had let the pit wall official of theirs, the team member there, know that there was a slight issue on one of the gauges. The only problem is the guy who was on the pit wall had lost his cheat sheet to what the fuck that hand signal meant. So they ignored it. So the car just went its full 200 laps.
You're the one driving the car. You can just go, ooh, let's pull over and just double check this.
No, because they were waiting for the instruction from the team of what to do. I think they assumed that Cummins was just like, no, we can't stop. Just go. So they're like, okay.
Oh, shit, man.
But yeah.
Oh, that's a warning. Something's gone wrong. Oh, dear. Oh, I'll be fine. I can't tell where it is.
So the thing that blows my mind is the fuel cost for that entire race in 1931 was $1.40. Now, I adjusted that to 2021 numbers. That was $25 worth of diesel. Now, this is not 2022, so that might be $50 now. But
I mean, if you
$1.40.
translate into pounds at the moment, that's probably about 400,000 pounds, given our current drop.
I'm sorry that you guys have a third world economy at the moment.
Trust in trust.
Oh.
She'll take the pound to the ground.
I might have noticed something here. The Cummins Duesenberg finished ahead of several powered Duesenbergs.
That's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? That's gotta hurt. Oh, look, they did our thing and they did it better. Oh.
Only a 96-mile-an-hour average speed, but again, no stops. So.
Yeah, that is effectively, he's got up to 96 miles an hour and he's just left it there.
So, I have some additional information here on the last page that I actually have what they ignored the pit stop for too. Look at me being professional. So, in 1932, the car was sent to Europe, and it did a 5,000-mile road trip across Europe, kind of showing off the car after the race. Cummins himself was a self-taught engineer, did not go to school for that. And he was on the number 32 pit crew for the 1911 running of the Indianapolis 500. He was on the winning team for the Indianapolis 500 in 1911 as a crew member. So from their shop to the track was 45 miles when I said that they were regularly doing those trips there and back each way. So you're doing almost 100 miles every day there and back just to go test the car. The average race speed in 1931 was actually 96 miles an hour.
Which I want to point out to everyone, that's 6 miles an hour. With no roof, no window, no doors, no safety, no seatbelt. Like, the best you got is a hat, like a leather hat, because I don't think they had helmets at this point, did they? And goggles. Like, that's the best you've got. That's ballsy.
So, Thane Hauser was the driver, and at some point, he noticed that the coolant temp was rising on the car, and he signaled to Jimmy Doolittle in the pits that they needed to take a look at this. The car was running a bit warm. Doolittle's the one who lost the piece of paper telling him what the fuck those hand signals meant. So he's just like, I don't know what this is. Apparently no one else does. I'm not going to ask. We're just going to let him go.
It was Dave Evans that drove this thing in 31.
Hauser was the ride-along mechanic, not Evans.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Evans just, after receiving no reply from the pit, just kept racing.
And obviously it didn't have a problem because it carried on. It did the whole race. I mean,
It did not care.
How many people had to then stop normally? Because obviously this did the whole 200.
Every other. This is the only car that's ever gone without a pit stop for that race. Ever.
Well, it's usually. I feel like not long after this is when it kind of became impossible to do that because they developed tires that actually gripped. And then as such, those tires didn't last as long, so you can't do the full 200 laps on tires anymore. It's just not possible.
I mean,
yeah, this is likely a record that will never be broken.
I mean, I could do it. I'd lose the race.
I mean, no. More than likely, what would happen is the tire would get to the point that it just stops holding air.
Just don't drive
or
fast.
it just stops gripping and you find a wall. The walls at Indy are not very comfortable.
Well, just do what I used to do as a kid.
No, they're not.
You race by just scraping along the wall, because then you haven't got to steer, because the wall steers for you.
Oh, so we put an extra 2 tires facing outward on the right side of the car?
Yeah. It works. It's an effective system.
Indianapolis is a magical place, I'm telling you. So for years, I was at the Indianapolis 500. I think like 15 years in a row I went. We were standing there one year in turn 4. We love turn 4 because you can watch the last corner. They're coming in. Everyone is jockeying for that win because winning the Indianapolis 500 is a big thing. I mean, it's a few $1 million. You get the keys to the pace car. Your face goes on the trophy. So driver comes in hot to turn 4, scoots up track and nails the fucking wall and just rides the wall down the straightaway as he loses it.
Ooh.
499 miles in. Fucks it.
That's a I'm getting sacked moment, isn't it?
We're gonna have to do a U.S. trip in the month of May because the beginning of the month of May has the Indianapolis GP on the road course with Indy cars, and the end of the month has the 500.
I really want to come over and watch either NASCAR or the Indy 500. More than anything, just for the noise and the fact that I appreciate the fact that it's still a very affordable thing to do. Like, if you compare it to F1 tickets to Silverstone, I think it's something like 200. No, it's not even that. It's like 500 quid or something like that for the base ticket.
It's like $100 and something for decent tickets to Indianapolis, but if you just wanted some general admission tickets and kind of walk around and watch the race from different places, which I highly recommend during the GP, because the best parts to watch the GP, there aren't bleachers. It's a hillside to go sit on. General admission tickets are like $30 or $40.
It's mad. That's what it should be. Look how many.
And you can bring your own cooler full of your own alcohol in, just no glass bottles.
Man.
So if you want to bring a fifth of your favorite vodka in a plastic bottle, good to go.
I think at some point we should have to do. What is it when you do the infield? Tailgating.
Oh my God! Do you want to go to the snake pit?
I kind of do.
We'll have to do carb day, and we're gonna have to throw Alex in the snake pit. It's okay. The snake pit is not the old stabby, murdery thing it used to be. Now it's just a giant festival concert thingy.
Yay! As long as I don't get hate crimed much, I'll be fine.
No, they might elect you king of the snake pit.
Man, yes, I could be a king of something. Elect me my crown, and I shall become the
We
king of
do
the
that,
snakes.
and then we also need to do Midwest Festival.
Anyway, as you can tell, we're all somewhere on the spectrum, and that's why when we do a podcast, it's always concise and focused and always on the topic at hand, and none of us ever get distracted at all by the concept of being king of the snake bit. So, the Cummins diesel.
I mean, overall, I think it was a great success for Cummins, and this really started not only a trend of a few different Indy specials, but it proved to people that their engines were reliable, they could work, and really got them started in moving towards where we know Cummins now.
Because Cummins now is...
And this is also, I don't know if they know it, but it eventually started and then culminated in the R18 TDI. As far as diesel race cars. Which, the R18 TDI was the same logic as this. Run a long time, don't fucking stop.
Is that the Le Mans racer that...
the Audi
The
prototype.
diesel LMP1 that fucking owned LMP1 for a while.
Because now
it was one of the there were multiple TDI Audis, and yeah, it was like most of a solid decade they won every year.
And you know how like right now, if you go to like well, it's not LMP1 anymore, but Gazoo is pretty much guaranteed to walk away with the win with one of their Toyotas.
Audi swept the podium more than once with those cars.
I mean, the thing is, if you do any form of endurance racing, one of the biggest slowdown is any pit stops you have. So, especially when you have to have the drivers out of the car to fill them up.
Well, the biggest is breaking the car, so
that does slow you down as well. But in terms of the less breakdowns and the less refills you get, obviously the more you can go. So, especially when you got a car here that can do the whole race in one move, you haven't got to pull off at all. That is going to help. Because obviously from this then, they became... Because a lot of people, especially over here, think of Cummins as, it's the diesel engine from the Dodges. But largely they do industrial stuff, don't they? It's like buses and lorries and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I just did an engine swap on an 855 Big Cam Cummins a few weeks ago in a semi.
You did?
The ISX is kind of the go-to engine for semis for quite a while. The ISX is a great platform. Obviously, the B series and the trucks, which is what we know as like the 5.9 and 6.7 that are in the Dodge trucks. I have one in my dually. They're great engines. They go forever. Daylan's owned a Cummins Ram at one point. His was a bit slower.
And it's because of this, effectively, when you trace it back, it's down to the Cummins diesel, the number 8 Indianapolis.
And I love that this started a trend of Cummins in motorsports.
It was also wasn't it not long after this that Cummins pretty much pioneered diesels in trucks in the U.S.
Yeah.
I think it was actually around the same time when he built one of the first actual diesel trucks.
So, my area of expertise is with the Detroit diesels, the 2 cycles. 2-stroke Detroits are what I work on. 1939 is when those actually started. So this is predating even those.
Oh, the story of the only 2-stroke Cummins is fun.
That might have to be a story you tell to me. Next episode?
Because I'm just trying to think, when was
I have to spoil the ending because it's so funny. The engine pretty much melted and turned into a solid block of corium. And Klesse got so pissed off, he threw it off a fucking bridge on the way back to the shop.
Superb. Oh
my god, I love
it. EPA be damned.
And thus, there will never be another 2-stroke Cummins.
I do, again, the 30s are a great time because you could just get annoyed at something and go, fuck it. Off the bridge you go, sunshine. You're not my problem anymore. Dumping in the river isn't bad, it's actually legal, and it's a good way of dealing with
there was also the other car, because there was 2 Cummins specials that year. One of them 2-stroke, the other one 4-stroke. The 4-stroke car, also, they later found out, because they had, no Cummins ever actually failed to finish, even the one that turned into corium, apparently. The 4-stroke car cracked a crankshaft, and they didn't find it until they pulled it apart to restore it, like in 2008 or something like that.
Again, it was a different time.
So it finished the race with a crack in the crankshaft.
Did it finish the race?
It
fine.
finished.
Oh yeah, good enough.
As long as it finishes the race, winning's winning. Or 16th place rather is 16th place. But actually, how many cars would race on these? Because he said he came in 16th place. How bad or good is
There were
that?
40 cars in the field that year.
So that's actually, I mean, for a first ever outing in a completely experimental type of car, getting in.
Now, it wasn't by pure speed that they did that. The no pit stops really helped that position.
Well, exactly, yeah, because you can bring your average speed up.
Also, it is worth noting only 15 cars actually finished out of the 40.
Yeah, okay, that again though, still that was again a lot of people don't realize.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Also, because this is back in the period where there was a death that weekend.
Yeah, I was just about to say that people don't realize like a lot of. I mean, we look at what Max Verstappen was it that went into the wall in F1 last year. Car goes up in flames, gets out and walks away. People don't really realize that that's a very modern thing. Up until then, racing safety was a thing. I mean,
the NASCAR car of tomorrow was just replaced. This is the first year with a new car after that. That was the first car to not have a driver fatality. Indycar, the DW12 chassis, I believe, so far is not only the first, but the longest running chassis in IndyCar to not have a driver fatality. That being said, Hinchcliffe tried, and so did Wickens, but they lived.
But this is the thing, is obviously back in these days, everything is really kind of, is it still very experimental? A lot of these end up with, I mean, this is like you said, it was a boat engine. I know quite a few race cars at the time had plane engines in them. Like, it was engines from anywhere kind of in, a lot of engineering was vibes-based at the time, and a lot of people were dying, so cars making it to the end of the race, in any sort of in form of racing, is a lot more difficult than you might think, because a lot of they're very simple, but also very terrible.
I DNF'd a DE event once.
You did. I was there. Had crew chief noises.
Was this by any chance the time you bricked the poor Miata's gearbox?
Not completely. I mean, it drove home. It was almost to the point where we decided to trailer it back, but.
Oh, also the if you want a reminder again about the whole dead thing, this was not only did you occasionally die at Indy, you died hard, as in crashing in turn to vaulting a wall and hitting a tree, and then catching on fire.
Yeah, okay, died hard.
To be fair, we've removed all the turn 2 trees. Lesson learned.
Yeah, they've been removed by all the cars that keep hitting them, that's why.
Now, the backstretch is still no bleachers, and it's a golf course, so if you fuck up down the back straightaway, you end up on a golf course.
Yeah, but that's only rich people you're annoying, and at that point,
honestly, crashing into the golf course is what I would like. That's what I want to crash into if I crash into.
Yeah, that's cathartic, It's just, I'm dead, but at least I've ruined some rich guy's day. Like, that works for me.
No, you might live, but you might live to.
I don't know that you know the neighborhood of Speedway well enough. That golf course is hood adjacent, because you're on 16th, the corner of 16th and Georgetown is where the track's at. If you continue down 16th Street past the track, it is Brickyard Crossings Golf Course, and then it is the hood. It is the. It's by Long's Donuts.
That's not rich then. It's middle class. But even then, I'm okay with that.
You go there for a cheap vodka and hope you don't get stabbed.
Look, anyone who's playing golf deserves to have a race car ruin their day. You haven't got to kill them. You just got to Jeffrey.
Speedway from the track to 465 is a good part of town. Speedway from the track to downtown? No. Don't do it. You're going to end up in Hallville.
I do also love the fact that
great donut shop there, though.
The track is just in town. Like, you don't get that in a lot
of
places.
It's just.
Also, if I remember correctly, I got gas pretty much across the street from the gate, and they had E85 and 110 on the pump.
Yeah. Like I said, if you're a car person, I kind of sometimes do miss living in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is an amazing city, because where you were filling up right there at that Sunoco, you were right down the street from Ed Carpenter Racing. You were less than a quarter mile from his shop, as well as Dallara.
See, that reminds me quite a lot of Nürburg, the town inside the Nürburgring, because they have a lot of car rental companies, but you can rent more cars with roll cages in than you can rent cars without.
It's just Indianapolis is an insane place for motorsports because it's not just IndyCar. So you have IndyCar teams spotted throughout the city because they spend so much of their time, I mean, an entire month in that place. It's the longest chunk of a schedule you're in one place. So a lot of the teams are based there. But we also have a massive drag strip just outside of the town. So you have Nitro Alley, where people like John Force and Tony Schumacher have shops. Tony Stewart's sprint car team shop is over there. There's a few WRC teams that are based in Indianapolis. If you know where to go in that city, there is a lot of really interesting shit hidden there.
This sounds like Milton Keynes. Milton Keynes is great. There's F1 teams everywhere. There's Pro Drive on the way in, which, you know, make loads of rally driving bits.
I mean, you drive by what looks like a warehouse, and unless you read the tiny print on the door, you don't realize what you're walking up to.
Well, every time I drive down to St. Abby's house, I drive past the factory where they built, like, Colin McRae's Subarus for ages, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's just a thing that's there. That's not.
I do remember being in a couple months. I worked in the Detroit area, and I ended up doing a splice. Our splice case was across the street from a Cosworth facility.
That's cool. We've gotten off topic again, lads.
Happens.
So, is that everything on the Indianapolis Cummins diesel race car?
The first special, yes. I guess we'll leave it up to them. If they want to hear the stories of the rest of them, maybe we can do a condensed episode with the rest of them.
Well, if you want to see that, please comment down below. The first few of these will be free because as I have recently become unemployed for reasons, I have lots of spare time and not a lot of money, so these are going to remain free for a bit, so we can still make content and have stuff you can enjoy. But these will eventually become bonus episodes. In the meantime, however, you know, please feel free to suggest stories and things that we can look into. And yeah, so I hope you guys have enjoyed the first of our bonus episode. Yes, okay, the presentation looks awful. Main reasoning for that. My laptop crashed literally as we started recording, so I've had to completely rebuild it at the very last.
You're lucky that this is 9 o'clock in the morning, or I would be drinking through your laptop failures.
I mean, it's you, and it's a Sunday. I wouldn't be surprised if you drank through it anyway.
I don't have any bourbon cheap enough I'm willing to try that with.
I have to be at work after we do this.
Oh, I wonder what it's like to be at work. I wouldn't know anymore. Oh.
I mean, we could get you another terrible position at a company that we're not allowed to name, but
I can name Jaguar Land Rover now, and I haven't got to be worried. One of these days, I'm just going to go on. If we ever get me drunk on one of these, I'm going to get drunk and go on a massive rant about the place. Anyway, before someone sues me, I'm going to say thank you very much for listening to the first of these episodes. There will be more. We hope might be recording more this week. Who knows? But yeah, that's it from me, Alex, and the other two, because Tyler tells me off when I expect him to, you know, say goodbye on his own behalf.
Why the fuck would I tell them goodbye?
Because it's polite. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I hope you guys have enjoyed. So yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, whatever time of day you're in, or whatever the saying is I use at the end of these. I forget every time and it changes, so yes. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and